Luke Cage is the newest Netflix series from Marvel, and it tells the story of Luke Cage, a man with unbreakable skin attempting to live a quiet life in Harlem, New York, but he soon finds out that a notorious crime boss called Cottonmouth is dealing in illegal operations that are affecting the people of Harlem, and Luke isn't going to let that happen, so he decides to bring him to justice. I loved both seasons of Daredevil, I loved Jessica Jones, so naturally I was really excited for Luke Cage because it's the newest Marvel Netflix series, but also because of Luke Cage's supporting role in Jessica Jones. I really liked him in that show, so I was looking forward to see if he could carry his own series, which by the way, he most certainly can. Luke Cage, the character, is once again great. He's such an interesting hero because he has no interest in being a hero. At the beginning of the show, you see him working multiple jobs and struggling to pay rent, just trying to be a normal guy, which is interesting to me because in other superhero shows and films, you rarely see the hero not actually want to be a hero despite the amazing abilities that they possess. So this immediately made Luke a likeable person on a normal guy level, but when he needs to get business done, when he needs to throw down, he's a badass. The action scenes and the fight scenes don't have the incredible fight choreography of Daredevil, but it's hard not to smile when Luke Cage is in a room full of guys shooting assault rifles and he just stood there when the bullets are just bouncing off him, and then he just proceeds to throw them all around like ragdolls into every object in the room, preferably through windows. What can I say? I like seeing cool badass characters beat the hell out of a ton of guys all by himself, and Luke Cage gave me that a few times, and it was fun to watch. I also like how Luke Cage's backstory was explored. Like in Daredevil and Jessica Jones, you get flashbacks during relevant scenes that remind Cage of certain past events, and you cut back and forth between flashbacks in the present day. This mainly happens in episode 4, which is pretty much the Luke Cage origin story episode. It flows really well when they're cutting between past and present, and Cage's origin story is actually quite interesting, and the scenes showing it were good also. Moving to the rest of the characters, first off, the villain Cornell Stalks, aka Cottonmouth. He is ruthless and he's slightly intimidating, but at first I didn't really find him that interesting of a character. That was until episode 7, where we get to see some glimpses into his teenage years, where he got involved in some pretty messed up stuff, and then you start to see him in a bit of a different way. You understand why he is the way he is, and that was very interesting and it gave him more layers, but I still didn't find him anywhere near as compelling or memorable as Wilson Fisk or Kilgrave or the Punisher. Another antagonist is Maria Dillard, who is Cottonmouth's cousin and a local politician. She isn't a criminal herself, but she works alongside Cottonmouth, who provides her with some funds for her campaigns. Her story arc is kind of interesting, seeing her interact with Cottonmouth behind the scenes and her trying to balance her shady dealings and public appearances promoting a safe Harlem. But again, it isn't until episode 7 onwards where she gets more interesting things to do as a character. I'll get to episode 7 in a little bit. One thing that's been consistently good in the Marvel Netflix series has been the good supporting characters, and Luke Cage maintains that consistency with good supporting characters of its own. One of them being Detective Misty Knight, who is a detective working the case revolving around Cottonmouth and his illegal activities. She's a likeable character because she's one of the good cops. She isn't corrupt, she doesn't take crap from anybody, and she's more than determined to get to the bottom of every situation and ensure that justice is always served. Like she says in an episode, she stalks justice. She's really smart too. There's a few times where she's at a crime scene and she's imagining the events that took place in her head to try and figure out what happened, and you see her stood there with the crime happening around her as she's imagining it. It reminded me of Batman Arkham Knight, where you scan a crime scene and you piece together what happened and rewind the recreation to look for clues. I thought it was a nice little touch to her detective persona, and those scenes where she's imagining the crime scene were really well done also. Rosario Dawson returns as Claire Temple. Her character is a really good way to interconnect the Marvel Netflix shows. She appears in all shows to fix up the heroes and provide support and encouragement in their stands against their respective villains, and she does the same here in Luke Cage. She fixes him up a couple of times and supports him in fighting against the threats in Harlem. But she has a lot more to do in this show. She gets involved in some significant moments later on, so I'm glad she wasn't just thrown in here just to have her be that one recurring element in the Netflix shows. She's actually used really well, and Rosario Dawson was great as the character once again. I'm gonna be honest, for the first 5 or 6 episodes, I was liking the show. It had some good scenes, some really good dialogue between characters, and a bit of that entertaining action like I mentioned. But I wasn't completely loving the show for the first 5 or 6 episodes. It wasn't really captivating me. But then episode 7 happened, which I've mentioned a couple times already, and some things happened in that episode that I did not expect. The show went in a direction that I didn't think it would go in, and from episode 7 through to final episode 13, Luke Cage is great. The second half had way more interesting story directions than the first half, which I will not spoil of course. The overall story is kind of like Daredevil season 1, where you had Matt Murdock, Foggy and Karen working together to try and take down Wilson Fisk. Here you have Luke Cage along with Detective Knight and Claire Temple working to try to take down Cottonmouth, who's causing trouble in Harlem, but it's not like a rip-off of Daredevil, it's still its own show and tone. Speaking of tone, one of the things I love about these Marvel Netflix shows so far is how each one has its own tone, vibe and differences in genres. Daredevil had the courtroom stuff with Matt Foggy and Karen, as well as the amazing martial arts fighting aspect. Jessica Jones was a psychological thriller with a neo-noir detective vibe, and Luke Cage is a police procedural mixed in with blaxploitation and gangster elements with Cottonmouth and all that talk about reputation. The blaxploitation element isn't necessarily a dominating aspect of the show, it's featured a few times with the whole Black Lives Matter message, but it's not shoved down your throat, it doesn't feel like anyone has an agenda, so that's cool. The whole gangster street life vibe is so engrossing, you sometimes forget you're even watching a Marvel thing. Then Cage will throw someone through a window and punch a wall down to remind you it is a Marvel thing. It's a really good balance and it's handled very well. I mentioned it a couple of seconds ago, Luke Cage is a great look at street life. You see the streets of Harlem, you see people giving each other respect, and you feel the sense of community with all the people living there. You feel a past and you just feel a sense of warmth with most of the people who live there, minus all the gangsters. The focus this show puts on the streets of Harlem, and thinking about it in terms of the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe, it makes you appreciate it more. It shows that you can have the Avengers save the world, but have guys like Luke Cage save the neighborhood. That's why I like these Netflix shows. They're smaller in scale and tell stories on more personal levels. Not saying the Marvel films don't do that, but the Netflix series just do it very well, and it's one of the benefits of having these characters on the small screen rather than the big screen with the rest of the Avengers. And lastly, the music was phenomenal. Lots of hip-hop rap played mainly during the fight scenes, as well as some smooth jazz from the Harlem Paradise nightclub. It's a great blend that fits perfectly into the Harlem setting and the culture, plus the jazz is catchy and quite nice to listen to. In the end, Luke Cage is my least favourite Marvel Netflix series so far. I didn't find it anywhere near as compelling or entertaining as Daredevil or Jessica Jones, but it still had a great lead character propelling the whole thing, some good supporting characters, and an engrossing gangster police procedural tone that keeps you watching. The first half of Luke Cage was good. The second half was great, and despite being my least favourite Marvel Netflix series so far, it's still an overall solid entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm going to give Luke Cage Season 1 a 4 out of 5. It's currently available on Netflix right now. I recommend you binge watch it if you've been keeping up with Daredevil and Jessica Jones. It continues to build up towards the Defenders, which I really cannot wait for. But if you're like me and you've already binge watched all of Luke Cage Season 1, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. How do you think it compares to Daredevil and Jessica Jones, or just by itself? Let me know all of your thoughts about that down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching and listening as always, guys, and if you want to see more of my stuff, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.